Yeah, I think it's a perfect time to segue on. We talked about a lot of like the behavioral signs of distress, but we really want to break them down into different categories. And again, this is not black and white. There is some gray, but just giving you guys some key indicators on like what to look out for when you are behaviorally distressed.
Right.
So there are four of them. So we got fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to talk a little bit about,
What that looks like.
yeah, what that looks like?
Yeah, so that's a common thing. We look at how people respond to stressful or overwhelming situations. Um, there's some people when they feel threatened, feeling danger, they're gonna fight.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna stand, and that's their natural, the kind of their automatic response
Yep.
is to fight, right? I need to protect myself, I gotta make sure I survive. And that can we'll kind of delve into what that looks like for specific kind of scenarios, because sometimes the threat is real, like you're in the street and someone is driving and they are a little too close to you, you might hit the top of their roof, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as
Um,
you should, kind of like that's a natural response, like you said earlier, right? Um, we want our bodies to fight and flight
mhm.
in the midst of real threat.
The truth is they all serve a purpose. So these traumatic responses to threats to your life, right? Your danger, your livelihood, your wellness, they are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Their ultimate goal is to keep you safe, to
Right.
protect you.
Exactly. Exactly.
We could talk about what it means when it's no longer keeping you safe and protecting you, but everybody has pretty much an automatic way that they respond to threats. So the fight could be that automatic, reaction to let them know, you're not the one. And that could look
Mm-hmm.
like banging on the top of someone's roof when they get too close to you, if you're trying to cross the street.
Mm-hmm.
The
Or
flight, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, or flight and would be to jump out the way, right? Somebody's
Yeah.
getting too close, driving towards you. Oh my gosh, I'm about to get hit by this car. Let me move out of the way.
Let me get out of here. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the classic ones that they talk about, if a bear is coming towards you,
Yep.
your automatic response is to get out of here. But how often are we faced with bears? Like, more likely like raccoons in my
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah. And we're
So
not, I don't know who's fighting a bear, not me. I'm not fighting a bear.
exactly,
I'm running.
exactly. But you
Mm.
never know. I've never been around a bear, but I've been around a raccoon that I definitely get out of their way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
The
And
freeze.
yeah. So freeze would be more of like that shutdown experience, right? And I would even say it happens, it can happen like in the moment, like immediate response. But also sometimes it happens when the fight and flight is not resolved. So then the body is like, okay, like I've tried to fight or I've tried to flight and this is not working. So now I'm just going to collapse and preserve energy. This is the
Mhm.
safest bet at this point.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we talk about like playing possum a lot. Like, okay, I'm just gonna like collapse, play dead. And that's what it could look like. But even in real time, like we talked about earlier, like that fatigue, that low energy, can't get out of bed, brain fog, feeling stuck,
Mhm.
um, all of those kinds of things with that freeze response.
Yep. And for some people, they call that like deer in the headlights.
Mm-hmm.
Someone like, if you're in a meeting and someone calls you out and maybe you're not ready to respond, it
Yeah.
could be like oh shoot, you literally see it in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is like the decision making, I'm overwhelmed and it's hard to make a decision. I don't know if the
Yep.
flight, flight,
Fight or flight. I'm just
you kind of
freezing.
get stuck. It's that
Mm-hmm.
stage.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in that stage, that's where you do feel like it's really hard to make decisions where it's kind of like this ruminating or just kind of like sitting with like an experience and cannot create movement, right? You're literally immobilized.
Yeah. Yeah. The last one, fawn, I don't typically talk about that much unless someone really, really fits the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Freeze and fawn can look very similar, but
Mm-hmm.
the motivations and the history around it are a little different. At least in my practice, the folks who have that fawn response that kind of looks like the deer in the headlight are the folks who've had some childhood abuse and neglect,
Mm-hmm.
or they've experienced prolonged experience, not necessarily tied to childhood, where they were in danger or abusive situations. So this can look like the people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna do what I need to do to stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you say, I will go that way.
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to keep the peace.
Just trying to keep the peace. I'm overwhelmed. Whatever you want to do, let's just do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
also a trauma response, because you
Mm-hmm.
might be doing that when it's not safe for you, it's not healthy for you.
Right, right, right. And these people might believe that they're easygoing, but at the root of it, there are easygoing people, right? Like I'm just an easygoing person, whatever. But at the root of it, if it is to, please someone else, um, or you struggle with setting boundaries and you feel discomfort in whatever's happening and you cannot, you know, um, speak up or do what you need to do to take care of yourself, you might be in a fawn response.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the characteristics of each of them, and there, keep in mind, these are all trauma responses. Folks who have had some experiences are in feeling that they are in danger, in threat
Mm-hmm.
of something. The fight can look like a bully, a
Mm-hmm.
person who is always, very aggressive in what they need. They may even have angry outbursts. Like,
Yelling.
oh, where'd that come from? What's
Mm-hmm.
going on with them?
Mm-hmm.
They may have explosive behavior that
Mm-hmm.
not really fit the situation.
Yep, exactly. And even that irritability that we talked about a little bit earlier, that can be like more of a subtle way to fight, right? Like I'm just snappy and irritable, like what'd you say? Kind
Yeah.
of thing, right? Like very short.
Hmm.
Um, Another one that I noticed with fight that might be normalized or we think that is like socially acceptable is like the people who work a lot. Like I'm just goal driven and you know, um, I'm about my bag and all of these
Oh, yeah. The hustler.
the hustler. Yes. And it if you want to hustle, that is cool, but my question is always like, how are you taking care of yourself? Like where's the balance? And if you're throwing yourself into work all day every day, that might be, I'm gonna raise my eyebrow like, okay, what's going on here?
Mhm.
What's happening? What are you trying to avoid?
Yeah.
I actually had that conversation a couple weeks ago with someone like, you've been picking up a lot of hours lately. What's this about?
Hmm.
you know
Hmm.
just to create some awareness, like where is this coming from?
Right. And it's not an issue if it's not an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're picking up more hours and you're still eating well and have a healthy sleep routine and your relationships are intact and you're
Mm-hmm.
good about yourself, it's not a problem. But we look at the behaviors of what someone is doing and how they are responding to it. They maybe have a negative self-beliefs.
Right.
They may be feeling, well, I'm being overlooked all the time at work, so I got to
Mm-hmm.
do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Never really arriving to that place of contentment in your work or your worth.
Yep, exactly. There's always more work to do,
Mhm.
always another degree to get or accolade, right? Like when is enough? And that's where that I'm not good enough like belief can live
Yeah,
in people who tend to overwork sometimes.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And the flighty one can look really anxious, the overthinker.
Yep.
Are you sure? Are you sure that I did good? Or did it look okay? The perfectionist, really difficult kind of the busybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. The body. And I even noticed this in my practice where the flight looks like when there's difficulty in relationships, they want out.
Oh,
Like I'm
Mhm.
protecting my peace.
Mhm. I'm out.
I'm out. Like, I'm cool. And I'm always asking, like, well, did we address this first with the person? Like, especially if it's a valuable relationship or something that meant something, like, where's room for healthy conflict? Because that's a thing, right? But with the flighters, there is no conflict. I'm just out.
Yeah, that's the solution. If I just leave, and there will be times that is, but if that's your go-to, that person may have a hard time making meaningful relationships
Mm-hmm.
at any point in challenge or anything that kind of threatens what they believe the relationship should look like. I gotta move, I gotta act, and I gotta do it now.
Yep, I got to do it now. I can't sit with my feelings, my thoughts, and kind of figure this out. Like, how do I want to move
Mhm,
and act? I have to do it now.
mhm.
I hear you. Yep.
So
So
again,
real.
these trauma responses, they're meant to protect you. They're
Mm-hmm.
meant to keep you safe, but there's times where we're overusing it and it's causing us more issues. It's
Yes.
disrupting our relationships. It is making it hard for you to feel good about um, your capacity.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you got the job, you got the degree.
Yep.
They're not going to fire, you know,
Nope. They
you're not going to
hired
get in
you.
trouble.
Mm-mm.
But it tends to be a reaction to feeling fearful that at any point I'm going to get chopped. I'm going to be the one to be let go. I'm going to be the one. They're going to leave me.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna leave me. Yep. Or I'm gonna leave them before they hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna connect to nobody because I don't want to get hurt.
And
Right.
that hurts too.
And,
So
mhm.
it's kind of like you trying to do this to save yourself, but it's hurting right now, even as
Mhm.
you're thinking about it. So um, we
Mhm.
definitely see these responses. There's a line between where it's protective and then where it becomes maladaptive, it's unhealthy. And
Yeah, yeah. And with trauma, our brains and our bodies will play tricks and lead us to believe that we are in immediate danger, right? Like
Mhm.
this is dangerous in this moment, and you have to do something right now. And most of the time, that's not the truth.
Right.
And even if the situation is unhealthy, there's still time to sit and process, like, what is coming up for me? What do I want to do? Problem solve so that you're in alignment with how you want to show up and what kind of life you want to have, right? So
Yep.
there's immediate threat and perceived threat.
Yep.
And typically people who are trauma survivors, they perceive a lot of things as threat.
Mhm.
And being able to sit down and pause and slow the process down is so powerful.
Yep. I agree that there's what you said, the immediate threat and the
Mm-hmm.
perceived threat. At the same time, you may be having an immediate reaction
Yep. Mm-hmm.
to something perceived.
Yep.
That's not even true.
Not even true. Not even true. And it happens. It is so common. And slow down.
Yes.
Yes.
Slow down, people. But that's something that you can learn. You know,
It,
there might have been a time where you didn't have the benefit of time and you had to react.
mm-hmm.
You can ask you, do I need that right now? Do I actually have the time? Do I have to respond right now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I don't. I don't. Let me sleep on that.
Let me sit with this for a minute
Mhm.
or a couple of days. Sometimes it takes them a minute to sit with something.
Yeah. And you might be sitting for a month.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Just sit.
Um,
Just sit with that.
yeah. And this freeze. So this is kind of like the opposite of this fight or flight, right? So there's um this quick response with the fight or flight, like I got to do something, mobilization, and the freeze is like I'm not doing anything.
Right.
I'm not moving. I'm
Yeah.
stuck.
And it's automatic. So it's not like you're choosing to freeze, but your system is so overwhelmed. I can't even think the next thought. I can't feel the next feeling. Some people say, I just went numb. I don't feel nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's big too when we're doing body work. Like as trauma therapists, I ask a lot of people like, where do you feel that in your body? And sometimes they can't even connect. Right.
They
And then that's an
don't.
indicator like, oh, okay, that's where we are in this moment. So I actually have to like help you wake up your system.
Yeah, one story that kind of sticks out to me around like it was a really extreme case of freeze. and this was while I was working in the hospital in a trauma center where, folks come in for a number of different things. It was a mom who came in because her son was shot.
Mm.
And she saw it. She saw it and she said, I saw him and I was in the street and I couldn't move and I urinated on myself. I couldn't talk. Where really all functions just kind of
Just
shut
shut
down.
down.
Just
Mm-hmm.
release, or release through that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't judge how people are responding, but
Mm-hmm.
want you to be able to recognize when folks are in a state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you did something or not to them, whether they had an experience you know about or not, to recognize when someone is in a state, they're in a fight state.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like someone is being combative with you, they're feeling threatened. They might
Mm-hmm.
be, or they might be feeling threatened, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A flighty with someone is just trying to I'll just do it, I'll take over this project, just to recognize
Mm-hmm.
folks' response. Or if someone free, you witness it. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to be able to recognize when you see it in someone else, but also like checking in with yourself about how you may tend to respond to threats,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're real or not. You feeling something and your body's
Mm-hmm.
gonna respond to that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But we can begin to start seeing each other as like human beings who are having a very normal reaction to sometimes things that are actually not happening, right? It's just a
Yes.
state of their reality or their experience.
Exactly, exactly. And I love that you pointed out like being able to recognize that in other people, because it offers like grace and self-compassion, or compassion towards others, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like I see what's happening here. And then you get to move different and act different, because sometimes, mirror neurons are popping off, or people are feeding off of each other's
Oh
energy.
yeah.
You don't take a pause. It's like, okay, now we're in this dance. And you really don't have to be,
Right.
if you know what the signs are, because then you get to decide to pivot and pause and
Right.
pivot.
And that's where some people, match in energy. We do that as human beings, but you can take control of the energy that you want to emit. I know some of my responses to things, so I have to check myself. Oh, okay, this is where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at right now. I need a timeout, right? I need to
Mm-hmm.
put myself in the corner to just be alone.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and that may look like, putting my phone on do not disturb. It may be limiting, important conversations because I'm in a heightened state, whatever that may look like. And it may not be healthy for the situation, but
Mm-hmm.
recognizing these responses, especially for people you deal with regularly, like it could be
Yep.
a conniving person at work, ooh,
Mm.
that's their, let me see what I need to do to deal with this situation. If I have to deal with it, you may not have to.
It might not be your problem.
It may not be yours.
I hear
But if it
you.
is yours, I want you to recognize it
Yep.
and take care of it. But then when we see it in others, then we can say, oh, okay, let me just, I think of road rage, which is pretty significant nowadays, where it's not just people honking horns, but there's people pulling out guns and
Yeah.
chasing folks
I've
down the
heard.
street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's that whole series Beef with Ali Wong on
Oh
a
my God.
road rage situation that just goes way too far. But that's for folks who are in a heightened state that have
Mm-hmm.
a hard time taking the best care of themselves so they don't make the best decisions.
Exactly. I hear you. Yeah, I've heard about the road rage, um, elevating to
Violent.
weapons. Yeah, and I'm just like, it makes me sad. Like, dang, this is where we are now.
It didn't
Um,
even have to be all that.
it doesn't have to be all that. But I hear you around just like being able to check yourself and notice like when you need a timeout or when you need a break, so it doesn't get to be all that, right? Like, okay, I don't have capacity, and I don't sometimes I'm like, I'm getting on my own nerves. Like I can
Yeah.
sit down somewhere. Like I don't even want to be in space and like exude this energy towards anybody else. I need to take a time in, check in, journal,
Mhm.
breathe, go for a walk, do something so that I can be more grounded, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, like the weapons, like that's extreme, but also it could look like the snappiness, or just